10th round of a dynasty draft, a startup. I was pretty stoked.
Yeah, he's just sitting on my taxi squad, just waiting.
I have him nowhere, and I'm really mad at myself for it. I was sitting there, and I was walking inside last night, and I just kind of stopped, and I was like, man, I have 0 shares of Jalen Hurts in Dynasty. What the hell was I thinking? Like, why didn't I just get at least, 1 share in one of my leagues? So, yeah, I'm really mad at myself for that. Really mad at myself. But, guys, I guess we're ready to kick this thing off, aren't we?
Yeah, let's do this.
All right. Here we go. Normally you're supposed to go when it happens, but there we go.
This is Fantasy Intervention. Now here to intervene with your fantasy life, Chase Vernon.
Oh, yes, and it's not just Chase Vernon in here to intervene with your fantasy football life. I have, of course, joined by Nate and James. How are you guys doing, man? How is the playoff outlook? What's going on?
I actually made a championship in my last league I was still in because T. Higgins actually did something and Ben Roethlisberger didn't.
That's crazy. That is absolutely crazy, man. Like the way that the outlook happened yesterday with Juju Smith-Schuster, with Big Ben, I mean, it was absolutely insane. James, how'd you do, man? You in any championships? What's going on?
I lost. I was going up against Josh Allen and I believe Deshaun Watson in a Superflex league. Yeah, it did not work out for me, unfortunately.
Oh man.
No, and man, it is tough because there's so many leagues out there, and I actually probably made it in less leagues. I think I made it in 4 championships this upcoming week, but it's frustrating because, like, I actually made it into 6 last year with half the amount of teams like I was in. So, I know that COVID had a little bit to do with that and everything like that, but it's like, damn, man, like I need to just get rid of all these leagues I was in, and COVID got me, man. Like, COVID got me to join like 15 additional leagues, probably more than I would have ever thought about joining. Because I was bored. I was sitting there at home just like, all right, what am I supposed to do? Someone brings up, hey, it's Father's Day. We should do a Father's Day draft. Okay, I'm not a dad, but I'm down. Let's do this. Let's go ahead and sign up another team. God, it was absolutely brutal trying to manage all these teams, but I'm happy it's all done. Man, I deleted. So we had a guillotine league, right? And I'm in this guillotine league, and it actually ended this past week, and I made it to the finals in that one. Ended up losing. It wasn't fun, but I mean, it was actually really close. I lost by like 15 points or something, or 10 points. But yeah, I mean, she just went off. She absolutely crushed it. So it is what it is. But anyways, I got to delete my ESPN app and my Yahoo app today off my phone, and I just had to take a sigh of relief. I was like, thank God, like I can just focus on Sleeper and MFL now.
That was nice. Battery.
God, man, that was so nice. Anyways, guys, where can we find you real quick? And then we'll get this waiver wire show started.
Well, you can find me on Twitter here at NateJack2017. I also write for In Between Media at IBT_media. Doing some quick shots with Join Our Circle and that whole crew. Find me on Twitter.
Absolutely. He's referring to the quick shots, which are our 2 or 3 minute clips of specific guys that, we really want to target for that upcoming week, or maybe we don't like. But you can find those at youtube.com/fantasy intervention. You guys can also find all of our shows on there. So go on there and make sure you guys hit subscribe. James, where can we find you at before we get the show started?
You can find me at FF_chef on Twitter. You can find some of my work at tiltisreal.com and at the Tilt is Real on Twitter as well. I'm also with Ball Blast Football, do some article work for them over there as well, some dynasty stuff. And of course, with Join Our Circle _.
Join Our Circle _ over there on Twitter. You guys can find me at FF_intervention. Congratulations to this Facebook user who made the championship in 2 out of 3 leagues. Guessing he's a big fan of the show, obviously. He said with our help. So yeah, man, congratulations. Awesome. That's awesome.
Awesome, man.
Yeah.
Hopefully we can help you go win it this week with all the stuff we got going on and lined up for you guys throughout this week. We also have another show tonight, by the way. Make sure you guys tune back in to youtube.com/fantasyintervention. We have another show coming on with Adam, where we're actually going to cover the injuries. And if you can feel safe picking up guys like Jeff Wilson Jr., who I believe we're actually going to talk about. So let's go ahead and kick off this waiver show. We have Tilting Waivers over here, where Chef actually puts together his waiver wire pickups for the week. You know, guys that he likes, guys that he doesn't like. And we are going to sit here and we're either going to tear it down or we're going to build it back up and get you back with it. So we're going to figure out exactly which way we want to go with this. And honestly, like, I want to start out by saying, like, this is something as to where this is the championship week. You most likely have the guys that got you there in your lineups. And some of these guys that got injured, like a Cam Akers, you know, I'm sure there's a couple people that made it to their championship week, but, you know, you probably lost if you have like a Cam Akers type character. So with waivers, be very, very cautious of trying to play them over the studs that you already have. Because I've seen some of these championship teams, and they are stacked. But still, we're going to go over it. It's also not everybody's championship week, so there might be, you know, an extra 4 teams in there. And then also, don't forget, we do have dynasty teams in there as well. So some of these players could actually be dynasty ads, where you want to add them and get them on your roster prior to somebody else getting them as the offseason starts. So let's go ahead and kick this one off with your first one. Your quarterback, Baker Mayfield. Go ahead, take your picture out because I know you're doing it.
For 2 whole days, I've been holding back my emotions against Chase. And Chase, he was down on Baker. And usually it's my job to do waivers. But maybe it's my job to make Chase a believer that Baker Mayfield is actually a good fantasy quarterback. He's finished QB 12 this past week. And he was on our list last week. Still available in 37.1% of leagues. Over the past 3 weeks, Baker is QB4, and he gets the Jets this week. Yes, I know the Jets just upset the Rams, but I don't see them having a repeatable success with that. Baker has 11 touchdowns over his past 4 games and 250-plus yards in all of them, hitting 300-plus yards in 2 of them as well. The Stefanski system has finally started to work for the Browns this past month, and they're on the verge of stealing the division from the Steelers. I have confidence that Baker gets it done for fantasy managers in Week 16.
Man, I got to hop on the other side of this. First off, not hop completely on the other side of this, because I put in my notes that I was like dead wrong about Baker, but I mean, it wasn't like he had an insanely good game. He still didn't lose you the week. So that was, you know, something that you're looking forward to. What did he finish up as? What was it? Quarterback 12?
QB 12.
Yes. I mean, week. You know, you might not have made it in the championship.
Quarterback.
Hey, he was a top 12, and I'm not saying that he was. Not saying he wasn't, but, you know, just keep in mind that the volume still wasn't there 100%. But I sat there, and as the week went on, right, I started to kind of warm up to Baker Mayfield because of the fact that Wyatt Teller was out. Wyatt Teller over there is the guard for the Browns, which they love to run behind. And whenever he's out, they actually struggle to move it on the ground. In weeks 5 through 8, Wyatt Teller was out, but so was Nick Chubb. So it was Kareem Hunt. But Hunt, if you take out these 4 games, he averaged 4.5 yards per carry. In those 4 games, he only hit 4.5 yards per carry 1 time. They could not move the ball. So I sat there and I looked into it, and I was like, man, like I don't like this running back situation. I think that Baker Mayfield might actually have to pass more often. With Teller out, it's just not good news. Meanwhile, we saw it happen. Chubb couldn't get over 50 yards on the ground, right?
Right.
Like Hunt got 21 yards on the ground, and the Giants are 24th up against the run. Every team has been able to run up against the Giants. So it really falls on Wyatt Teller, in my opinion. And I know one offensive lineman doesn't always make a big difference, but in this case, it does. And Teller's looking to be out again this week. They're saying that he's doubtful. So you know what? Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead and play Baker. Like I'm cool with it.
Yeah, I mean, I love him, and I've been pretty clear about how much I love Baker. This is a good matchup for him this week, especially like you're saying, if Teller's out. I mean, if you're still streaming quarterbacks at this point, you almost have to go out and get him, I think.
Yeah, I mean, if you made the playoffs like I have in the past, streaming quarterbacks, then he could be a play for me, very similar to how Matthew Stafford was back, a couple years ago. Like, you find these guys. Tannehill was one last year. But, Baker Mayfield isn't putting up the same type of big numbers that Stafford's capable of doing, that Tannehill's capable of doing. So Baker Mayfield for me is somebody that I'm like, okay, like just understand that his ceiling is very, very capped in most weeks. Not in all weeks, but most weeks it's going to be very capped. But this is a fine week. He's not going to let you down. He will not let you down.
Right. One thing, Chase, that we didn't mention at the top of the show, and that is important in waivers, especially in week 16, you may not necessarily need these guys on your roster, but you may want to pick some of these guys up to block your opponent.
True. Very true.
And that's something that you have to keep in mind as a fantasy manager in week 16.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go ahead and let's talk about our next quarterback on the list. We got what, Mitchell Trubisky?
No, man. I'm Mitchell Trubisky. Yeah, we can talk about it.
No. Go ahead and go with your guy.
All right, man, my guy, and we were talking about this when the show started, a little bit off show. Jalen Hurts, 35.5% owned. He was QB1 last week, and he was on our list. He finished the week with 37.82 fantasy points, and like I told you last week, Hurts is the real deal. If anyone thought that the rushing yards were a fluke in week 14 versus the Saints, they were wrong if they didn't pick up Hurts last week. He's going to be a hot commodity on waivers this week. So if you need a QB, I would definitely drop most of my fab on Hurts going up against Dallas in week 16, the Cowboys 21st versus fantasy quarterbacks.
I think that's probably going to be the number one waiver wire target on the week, unless, both teams are stacked at quarterback, or if, this is your fantasy championship. But I got your back on this one. I can't, there's no way to argue. I mean, Cowboys are terrible. It's just it makes perfect sense. I can't think of a reason as to why you wouldn't go after him.
Right.
If you're somebody that is in a two quarterback leagues, probably already have him. So yeah, yeah. I mean, honestly, I don't know how he's only 35% rostered.
That's crazy.
It's amazing. And that's a consensus. I stuck with the consensus this one. So that's Yahoo, ESPN, and I think MFL. So that's pretty crazy that he's available in all those leagues combined.
Yeah. That is crazy.
Formats,
yeah, I mean, this is a week where I feel like Hurts is going to go off against Dallas. I'd love to have him in my lineup going off against Dallas.
I wish I was in the fantasy finals in my dynasty league, so I would just pull him out of my taxi squad and he could just smash the whole league. But unfortunately, that's not the case.
That's what leave him in the taxi then. But go ahead, on to your next guy.
And this one, I'm not too 100% on this guy playing him. But I believe he can have a good day, and that's Mitchell Trubisky, only 16.9% owned. He didn't put up monstrous fantasy numbers this week, but he led his team to a victory. Obviously, that's not enough for fantasy unless you're a Bears fan like our colleague Dave Kluge. But he seems to have that offense clicking, and he's spreading the ball around. His touchdown stat line goes like this: 3, 1, 3, and 1 over the past 4 weeks. So maybe it's 3 again here versus the Jags in week 16. Jags are terrible against fantasy quarterbacks and are allowing the second most points to the position. If the other two quarterbacks on the list aren't available and you need a quarterback, Trubisky is a guy I'd be willing to roll the dice on against Jacksonville.
I was on it last week. Like, I was on Mitch Trubisky last week, and then all of a sudden freaking David Montgomery goes off for however many freaking yards, and they just didn't need a pass. But he started out good. I think he threw a touchdown like the first quarter or something to Mooney, right?
Correct.
Yep.
I mean, I was like, oh, yeah, I'm about to take victory laps on a Mitchell Trubisky take. And it just never happened because they didn't need to pass or anything. So, I'm sitting there looking
32 carries kind of wiped that away.
32 carries.
Unreal.
What?
Unreal.
I went out and made a formal apology on Twitter to Dave Montgomery. I don't know if you guys saw that.
I did. I retweeted it with a heart, a big heart.
Fucking dick. All right. How are you feeling about this, man?
I don't know, man. Doesn't sit well with me, I guess. Trubisky's I'm waiting for it to all fall apart for him. And I know maybe Jacksonville isn't the time when it happens, but also I could see it being the time that it happens where he falls apart. They run the ball with Monty like they did last week. And he's a guy with, I feel like his floor is so low. I wouldn't pick him up.
He has that upside, though. He has that upside. You're probably going to be going up against like a Patrick Mahomes type quarterback, man. And, if it's going to be something where you need that upside, I actually really like Mitch Trubisky for the upside. He's probably one of my favorite players on waivers outside of, Jalen Hurts. So it's something where I can get behind it. I get it.
I mean, I get it. I'm just waiting for the floor to fall out from underneath him, I guess.
It's very possible. Possible. All right, so real quick, I just want to give Facebook user a heads up. I haven't looked at the matchups coming up. I haven't had time. I do 10 podcasts a week. We don't have time to actually get that research in up until tomorrow, but that's why we have tomorrow night's show. We actually have a show tomorrow night where we take all these starter sit questions. We have a bunch of professionals on, and we hammer the hell out of them. For now, we're sitting there. We're going to be focused on waivers and getting the right people onto your team. And then we'll worry about setting the lineup starting Wednesday and looking into these matchups. Just want to give you a heads up. Go check us out over there at youtube.com/fantasyintervention. Once again, that's youtube.com/fantasyintervention. Hit subscribe so you don't miss that show. All right. So I've got a guy.
This into the show sheet, man.
I did.
I'm looking at this.
I didn't see it either.
I actually typed it in after Nate was checking it out. It's going to be at 8 o'clock, by the way, tomorrow night. The Facebook user actually, threw it in there. It's going to be 8 o'clock tomorrow night. We actually have Chris Allen on. Chris Allen's a big deal in the industry. The guy knows his stuff, man. It's going to be Mike, Cooter Doodle, myself, and then Chris Allen. And I'm very excited for Chris Allen. Like, we had Scott Fish on, and that was absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. But Chris Allen, man,
that's
the real deal. Scott Fish. No, I'm just kidding. But Chris Allen really is the real deal, man. I'm excited. All right, so let's go ahead. And let's do this trivia. Okay, I got some trivia for you guys. And I said, don't cheat and look this up, fuckers, behind the scenes on the notes. But I want to make you guys think real quick, right? There's a team who struggles up against mobile quarterbacks. They've allowed Josh Allen to get 41 points in them. They've allowed Russell Wilson to get 24 points in them. Kyler Murray, 43. Herbert, 24. Cam Newton, 25. All right, I got some more hints that I didn't put on the show sheet because I didn't want you guys to cheat and look it up. But this quarterback that's facing them this week was a top 10 quarterback last week, right? He's actually 8th overall, and he got 15 of his points on the ground. Do you guys know who this quarterback is?
Ooh. Is it Ryan Tannehill?
It's not Ryan Tannehill. It is not, but that's actually a good one because he did have the 2 rushing touchdowns.
Yeah, that's what put me in that direction.
But he was 8th overall.
Oh my gosh! Oh man, I think I got it now. It's not Tannehill. It's got to be it's Mariota.
It's Mariota, and he's got the Dolphins this week, which have been brutal up against quarterbacks who can't move. But now, keep in mind, Cam Newton didn't do well this past week. This was week 1 when Cam Newton did go off. But we're talking about Josh Wilson, 41 points. Russell Wilson, 24 points. Kyler Murray, 43. Herbert, 24. Newton, 25. And then Newton had 11 in another week. It was right around that range. But I'm not cherry picking. These are the only guys that could run up against him. Patrick Mahomes, I don't consider him a mobile quarterback, but he put up 24 points, and he's able to maneuver throughout the pocket. So, if you want to consider Patrick Mahomes in that too, he went off. Everybody else has completely been terrible. We talk about Jared Goff and stuff like they were all terrible up against the Miami Dolphins. However, over there on Sleeper, I went to Sleeper for this, not like, the consensus for everybody. I was in a little bit of a hurry, but I went to Sleeper for this, and I think he's the top picked up quarterback right now. He's the hottest trending quarterback. I mean, is this
currently available in almost in 99.4% of leagues? I got 98
right here. That's crazy. It's not crazy. It's not crazy that he's available. It's kind of crazy to me that he's getting picked up. I'm not on this train, but I just want to see, are you guys picking him up? If it's a 1 quarterback league, you're playing for the fantasy championship, are you picking him up and are you playing him this week? He looks good.
I mean, if those guys aren't available that we just talked about, and I'm the Derek Carr owner, and somehow I made it to the finals, which I actually have a friend that did it. He was 5-8 and pushed his way through the playoffs somehow, some way, and he's in the finals with Mariota as his starting quarterback. So I guess if you have no other choice, yes, but it's not a guy I'm particularly targeting on waivers.
I might actually. I'll have to go look at the waivers in the one championship league I'm in. He looked really good in that Gruden offense, man. It was like that scheme just fits him so well. And Gruden, the play calling was great.
The play calling was so good. But
so
also,
good.
you have to keep in mind that they were not prepared for Mariota.
True, that's fair.
And they have a very porous rush defense, right? They play the Chargers, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they play the Chargers. That defense is terrible at stopping the run.
Right.
So they have a mobile quarterback from a team from a guy that is a completely different player from Derek Carr. Although Derek Carr actually does have some wheels on him. I might have brought that up in our show last week. Derek Carr is actually the 6th fastest running back according to combine times.
I think you did bring that up.
Yeah, I mean he's Derek Carr's not slow, but Marcus Mariota plays a different game than Derek Carr does, obviously. But they weren't prepared for him. So is this something as to where like you can actually pick up Marcus Mariota and play him?
I don't think I would do it. The Dolphins defense, obviously you need some passing work. You can't rely on all the run game to go. I think the Dolphins defense holds that Raiders offense in check this week, especially with a week to prepare for Marcus Mariota running the ball. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay.
I'm not the only one. It's just too risky. Crushing, man. It's too risky.
It's too risky, but
I'd rather play Trubisky.
He's got the upside, I guess. But I that Dolphins defense is vicious, man. All right. As for the running backs, all right, we're coming up on a guy that I think that you have to keep an eye on with that injury, and it's getting more sketched out. Tune in tonight at 8:00, with Adam H, so we can actually talk about these injuries. But go ahead and let me know what you think about this, your first running back.
I'm definitely going to tune in because I love Adam's takes, especially in the injury department, and I know he's going to be talking about this guy, Jeff Wilson Jr., 50% ownership in leagues. And we only saw Wilson come in the second half, having 47% of the snap share with Mostert for the majority of the game. Now that Mostert is in question and of not playing once again, you need to have Wilson on your roster if you haven't already. And against the Cardinals, who are 14th in fantasy points allowed to the running back position with 17.8 points per game. I mean, that's somebody you want. They really can't pass the ball too much except for to Brandon Ayuk, especially with CJ Beathard coming in as the quarterback this week.
Yeah. I just have to keep an eye on the injury, to be honest with you. And, I actually did throw these guys back in there. Maybe we want to bring them up right now while we're here. Like sitting there talking about Tevin Coleman and McKinnon. Like, what if Wilson doesn't go? Is Tevin Coleman a play? Is McKinnon a play?
No.
I wouldn't trust him. I wouldn't trust him
on a bad ankle. Jeff Wilson is. Like, I'd rather him not play and Tevin Coleman get the workload.
Well, it's gonna be question marks all over the place, and I think maybe you just avoid the whole situation and you have a better pivot somewhere else.
That's kind of what I'm getting to. Like, I don't think that you have to sit there and say that Mostert's actually a pickup. If he's going in with a bad ankle, I don't know, man. Like, how much? Like, are you sitting there making him a high-end waiver priority? If you're going to sit there and worry about an ankle issue, it's just something that sketches me out. Man. I can't get behind this one, to be honest with you.
Yeah, ankle injuries, no.
Yeah, that's tough. It really is tough.
All right, let's go to your next guy. Who's the next one that you have? Because this one was really confusing for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's Gus Edwards. He just doesn't want to go away. He
went away last week because I lost my bet to Mike.
I mean, JK he's looked great. J.K. Dobbins is great, but Gus Edwards is still getting some work in the running game. 9 for 42. I mean, yeah, he didn't score 2 touchdowns like he did in week 14, but he did catch 2 balls, which is crazy to think that that Gus Edwards would be getting some passing work in that offense instead of it all being J.K. Dobbins. And if that is the case, and you are in a pinch for some whatever reason, maybe your opponent needs a running back on the fly. He was that Mostert owner or that Wilson owner. I'd definitely be picking up Gus Edwards to snipe him away from him.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about like Gus Edwards. He scored his only 2 red zone rushing attempts back 2 weeks ago. So we're sitting there looking at it, and it is just very, very spotty when you go with them. Like you're talking about 10.1 points, 9.8 points, 7 points, 0.6 points, 8.3. That's what, 5 out of his last 6 games.
Yeah.
So he did have a big game up against Cleveland where he scored on his only 2 red zone attempts, which came, by the way, from outside the 10-yard line. That wasn't even inside the 10. He scored his only 2 touches, which came outside the 10-yard line up against a Dallas or up against Cleveland team that, they could be spotty up against the run. I picked Gus Edwards to still be, that guy. Like I was you pretty much last week, and I just can't get behind it this week.
He's too touchdown dependent. And if he's getting red zone carries outside the 10, I mean, how often is he going to score even 1 touchdown with those kinds of opportunities? It's just not going to happen, really.
Yeah, it's something where I can't get behind your Gus Edwards one, but oh man, this next guy
it's limited out there, guys. It's limited out there.
It is very limited. I'm not hating on you too much, but we got to tear you down. We got to build you up, man. It's one of the two.
Right on.
You're saying to yourself, to the gods, we already know your take. You got to hear ours now after we see your research.
Yeah, I hid the research on Gus Edwards and Zach Moss, and that's exactly what I'm talking about. Zach Moss, there really isn't too much research to go off of, but he is getting a fair deal of carries, 13 carries on both back-to-back weeks, got 81 yards on the ground against Denver, and I believe he will do the same against New England, possibly even more. New England is in the bottom third of the league for running backs fantasy points allowing 19.3 fantasy points per game on a weekly basis. Zach Moss, I think, is a guy that you can put in your lineups if you're in a pinch, in a flex position if need be. We know that the Bills have clinched. They've clinched a playoff spot, right? They've definitely clinched the division, right? So why are they going to punch out there Devin Singletary on every single play, or even Josh Allen running the ball and risking an injury? They have Zach Moss for a reason. Why not punch the ball with Zach Moss and control the clock, get out of there with a win, and go home for the holidays?
Yeah, it's a little bit spotty for me. Go ahead. Take it, Nate. You're good.
Okay. So for me, again, this is another guy. He's too touchdown dependent, and he's just not seeing those opportunities. And he doesn't really – I'm just unimpressed in general with Zach Moss. I just don't think there's anything there. And maybe that'll change next year. But, for a championship, I don't even want to flex him. I mean, I'd rather go with Gus Edwards, I guess.
Oh. That's a tilting point right there. That's something on my show. That's a tilt point right there.
I can get behind that. Now, what I'm looking at is the workload that he's not getting, right? Like he's not getting touches in the red zone. He's not getting these high, profile type touches. And I mean, only 13 carries last week with only 1 being at the goal line. I mean, they were in scoring position the entire game, and he still only got 1 chance to punch in at the goal line. I mean, he hasn't broken 10 points in 5 weeks. So, I can't go there. Like he's not only, got a really low floor, but his ceiling is 10 points. So. Yeah. Maybe he punches in twice. That's possible, but they're just not giving that opportunity. I got to be all out, 100% out on Zach Moss. I actually have him in one of my leagues where I'm in a championship run, and I have Mostert and Jeff Wilson Jr. And I'm sitting there trying to figure out if I want to pick up Devin Coleman and play him over Zach Moss. So, what about your next guy? This guy, you're cheating, but I'll let it slide.
It's not cheating if the rules in your league permit it, Chase, and we are fantasy players, and that's what you have to do. You have to bob when everybody else is weaving. And Lynn Bowden, all right, yes, he's not a running back. He barely gets any carries, but he's got that running back wide receiver hybrid designation, and that always helps in fantasy. With the most of the Dolphins banged up, Bowden should be in for another productive week against the poor Raiders secondary. I'm trusting him. I really am. I think he can get it done this week as well.
I agree with you. I just want to say for those people that do play Dynasty out there, I'm not going to go on a long spiel or anything like that, But man, Lynn Bowden is sexy moving forward. This guy is going to be an absolute monster. And honestly, like he should see a massive, massive opportunity, down the stretch when it comes to Tua finding his way, and then adding weapons to stretch the field out. He's going to be like Bowden. I'm pretty much, I could see trading a late first round pick for Lynn Bowden. I really could.
Wow.
Probably earlier second. It's probably an early, but I'm contemplating doing it because the Lynn Bowden owner won't let go of it. And if Tua can find his way just a little bit more, Lynn Bowden's the guy. Devontae Parker can't stay healthy. Mike Gesicki can't stay healthy and is very unreliable as a whole. Meanwhile, they're probably going to add pieces on the offensive line, more rookies, more veterans that they're going to end up constantly building this offensive line and getting it up there for the Dolphins. So I'm telling you guys, like I love Lynn Bowden Jr. I love him. I have him everywhere. There's like 2 leagues I don't have him in out of 28.
Yeah, I love Bowden too. I mean, like you said, Devontae Parker can't stay healthy. So they need someone to throw the ball to. And if Gesicki can't stay healthy, Jakeem Grant is hurt again. Like, I like Bowden enough this week that I would consider maybe starting him over an established wide receiver.
And Gus Edwards and Zach Moss.
Oh, for sure.
Oh, yeah,
Sure.
definitely. Definitely.
All right, let's hop into this last couple guys we need to talk about. And this one was mine. I know it's not on your sheet, but I wanted to bring up Henderson and Malcolm Brown. McVay came out and said that they're going to get a good workload this week. And you guys, if you listen to the show, you know that I don't like running backs up against Seattle. Like their yards per carry aren't great, but I went back and I looked at it just to make sure. I really just for the show, I went back and looked at it. And I noticed something. They're giving up 12 touchdowns over the last 8 weeks to the running back position. There's only been 2 teams that were not able to get in the end zone up against the Jets over the past 8 weeks. I'm sorry, up against the Seahawks over the past 8 weeks. One of them was the Jets. The other one was the Eagles. The last time they played, they gave up 3 touchdowns to the running back. Like they're not allowing these big carries, but they're allowing touchdowns. Teams are getting down there in the red zone and they're just pounding it away. And it's something that's almost like baffling to me to an extent, because I was so against starting running backs up against Seattle. And now it's like, I don't know if I hate that so much. I mean, they might not get a ton of yards, but I expect them to get into the end zone at least once. Right.
But that's the problem. I'm sorry, but that's the problem with both of them. Now that you're saying they're both going to get carries, we don't know which one. And now we're back to week 1, week 2 of the season where we don't know which one's going to get into the end zone. And Darrell Henderson, I did a little bit of work on this because I saw it on the show sheet, 61% owned. You probably have a better chance of getting Malcolm Brown at 20% ownership. But are you really trusting Malcolm Brown in your fantasy finals, Chase?
He got 2 touchdowns up against him, and then Henderson got in the end zone. And Henderson, also has that, pass catching upside. So I trust both of them questionably. I mean, as a flex, I'm not going to run him out as my starting running back and be like, oh yeah, start him over Aaron Jones. But, if you need a guy, dude, he got in the end zone twice, and he's been known to do that. And honestly, like Henderson, we don't know how banged up he is. It's something as to where last year with Malcolm Brown, and I'm not sure that I'm getting these exact numbers right, but Todd Gurley ended up having some knee issues towards the tail end of the season, and Malcolm Brown probably got in the end zone like 3 or 4 times over the final few weeks of the season, if I remember correctly. Once again, got to go look that up. Probably shouldn't have said it out loud without actually having those facts in front of me. But yeah, I mean, Malcolm Brown's fine. I'll trust Malcolm Brown.
I'll trust you.
He got 1 touchdown in week 17 last year and 1 touchdown in week 14 against Seattle.
Say that one more time. What was it?
1 touchdown in week 17 against the Cardinals and 1 touchdown against Seattle in week 14.
God, he's got that kryptonite for Seattle, huh?
Apparently.
Well, there you go then.
Touchdowns week 4. I don't mind playing Malcolm Brown if you need a flex option. I'm fine with it. Perfectly fine. I think that the passing game is going to be the biggest, they're going to be going off. I think the passing game is going to crush it, but they might not get the touchdowns. And if they get in the red zone, they want to rely on this running game. That's what they've been doing all season. That's what McVay's been pushing. People sit there and they've been ignoring it. But honestly, like, yeah, it's something as to where I think that they could still both get in the end zone. So let's go ahead and jump onto the next position. What do you have for us?
Well, we're jumping in on the wide receivers, and the first one up is Russell Gage, 21.3% ownership in multitude of leagues. With Julio Jones being out the past couple of weeks, I don't know why Gage isn't more owned. Gage has posted 15-plus fantasy points and scored 2 touchdowns the past 3 weeks. And for me, as long as Julio is out, Gage is a solid flex play, even up against a tough defense in Kansas City.
Nate, you want to start with this one? Because I got facts.
I can see it on his face.
With Calvin Ridley, I mean, it's kind of, even with Julio Jones out, like with how good Ridley's been, I have a hard time with Russell Gage. Like, I know he scored a few times, but I just feel like Ridley's going to get most of that volume, and especially against the Chiefs. Yeah. Ridley's going to be the guy because he's the guy who can beat some of that coverage. I don't know that Gage is a good enough route runner to create any of that separation, and I just don't think he's going to be somebody that is going to be reliable against Kansas City.
Same deal. I mean, that secondary is so good. Like, they're so good. So it's something that's where I get it. I understand people want to jump on Gage. I mean, he's had good weeks, but the Chiefs have allowed no receiver to get over 100 yards since week 9. They haven't allowed a single receiver to get over 100 yards since week 9. They've only allowed 3 receivers on the entire season, and 2 of them happened before week 5. So I'm sitting there and I'm looking at it like, oh, maybe you could say their schedule was a little bit easier up against some easier, wide receivers. Like, I went back and I looked at it, and they faced the Saints, obviously, without Michael Thomas. They faced the Dolphins. Devontae Parker got hurt. Faced the Broncos. We all know what's going on over there. The Buccaneers and Chiefs, they were pretty good. They got shut down. But I will say that Chris Godwin, he had 97 yards. Mike Evans had 2 touchdowns. So it depends on, which route you want to go that way. Nelson Aguilar, like, they played the Raiders. Nelson Aguilar was best receiver that week. Panthers were the last one to actually, have a receiver with over 100 yards. And then they faced, like, the Jets, the Broncos again. Like, they haven't faced a very good schedule. So I can understand how you'd sit there and you'd say, hey, man, like, this is just an easy schedule. They're not that good. I can see that. I get it. But I'd rather go with your next person, well, somebody that we're going to talk about here in a second, with Emmanuel Sanders, with Thomas being out and Traquan Smith being out, than relying on a second-string wide receiver with a really tough matchup. And that's if Julio's out.
Right.
Yeah. I think they shut him down for the rest of the season, to be honest. But
it would make sense.
Well, that would be the smart thing to do, but this is Atlanta.
They always want to win. They got to win, right?
Right.
That's what they've been talking about. All right, so let's talk about your next person. A guy that's I'm too in love with some Browns, I guess. I caught some Browns fever. And my next guy is Rashard Higgins. It's only 16% ownership in leagues. He was on our list last week, and he didn't disappoint. 4 for 76 on 5 targets. He gets the Jets this week. The Jets are 24th against the fantasy wide receiver. I think Higgins is a target. As long as he's getting at least 5 targets a game, he's going to produce, especially against the Jets. Once again, I get it. I don't hate this one. I don't hate it. But I got a gut feeling, right? I got a gut feeling that said it's going to be a DPJ week, right? Donovan Peoples-Jones. I can feel it in my loins. Actually,
I hope you're right, man. I love DPJ.
All right, so bless Austin, right? He's absolutely brutal in coverage. He's been one of the worst cornerbacks on the outside the entire season. He's been very, very bad. He's allowing a 69.8% completion percentage while targeted. Meanwhile, they target him a lot. They pick on him a lot. So the Browns, they do switch up what side the receivers play on. Like, it's not like DPJ is just on one side. But ever since Kadero Hodge went out and got injured a few weeks ago, DPJ has been on the left side like 70% of the time. That's an exact number, but it's right around 70% of the time he's lined up on the left. That's on the same side that Austin plays on. So I'm sitting there and I'm looking at a chance for DPJ to get 2 or 3 big-time plays. Now, keep in mind, Hodge, right, he's back, but he only saw 8 snaps last week, and I think that they're trusting the rookie to be the third receiver in DPJ. With that being said, put all that together. Actually took me a little bit of time to do that research because I had to add a bunch of numbers together with the percentages and stuff. But with all that being said, Higgins is still probably the play here. It's very curious how the Jets kind of run this offense. You know, the Jets, they stayed in nickel the entire game in week 15. And honestly, like, I feel like the Browns could take advantage of that. I thought this was something where the Browns were going to run it heavy, but once again, Wyatt Teller, with him being out, it still makes me nervous. But if they do go to a pass-heavy type thing, we could see them use the 2 tight end sets like they do and just out-muscle them up against this nickel coverage. I mean, the only safety on the field because of injuries and whatnot is Marcus May. They're using 4 cornerbacks the entire time lining up in nickel. All of them had 59 snaps. So I think the Browns could, look to take advantage of this nickel setup, use 2 tight ends, which would limit the opportunities for Higgins. I'm sorry, for DPJ to actually get on the field. But DPJ just needs a few plays. Meanwhile, Higgins kind of needs some volume. Yeah. I mean, I know you said he didn't disappoint, but 11.6 points, it'll get you by. But it's like, you're facing the best of the best. You're facing the second best person in the league. Because I know if you listen to the show, you're probably the best person in the league. But still, it's something as to where, like, Higgins is going to need opportunity. And I think he gets a little bit hurt by that. I still think he could be a play. I'm not saying that I hate him or anything, but that's borderline.
I'd love for DPJ to step up and get more of that target share, like you're saying. Yeah. I just can't trust him with only 3 targets. I mean, I know he had 5 targets in week 14, but then 3 targets again. And yes, he catches almost everything that's thrown to him, and he has the ability to blow one off and score down the field on a long bomb. But I just want to see it. I want to see more of it.
Don't go play DPJ this week.
No,
I'm not saying that DPJ is the play. Do not. If you're in a fantasy championship, do not pull out DPJ unless you need a Hail Mary. Like, unless you need 2 touchdowns and 100 yards. Don't roll out DPJ.
I mean, if you're in a dynasty league and he's available and you have no other options, yes, go ahead. But other than that, I'm not taking a shot.
I just wanted to point that out, for dynasty purposes, that it could be a play, and I'm going to be looking at that heavily for DFS, to be honest with you.
Nice.
How do you feel, Nate?
I just feel like with this Cleveland offense, there's enough bread to go around. I mean, even if DPJ's stealing a few looks, I still think Higgins can feast, especially against the Jets. Even if they try and run out that 2 tight end set, I still think Higgins can feast. I like this call a lot.
Okay,
I'm with you, Chef.
My man.
All right, so let's go ahead and let's talk about the guy that I said I would probably pick up above Russell Gage. He's probably my top wide receiver. One of them. He's up there on the waivers this week, and you got a ton of them. So we might need to kind of rush this just a little bit, not a lot, but just a little bit. Who are we talking about? Who's your next person?
We're talking about Emmanuel Sanders, and hopefully he's available in your league. 49.8% ownership. And I don't know how he's available with the news of Michael Thomas landing on IR last week. Everybody should have ran out and got him. But if he's available in your league, then you need to grab him. With Brees back at the helm and Thomas out, Sanders posted 4 for 76 against the Chiefs. The Saints match up versus the Vikings in Week 16, and Sanders will be looking to take advantage of Chris Jones and Cam Dantzler on the perimeter. He's a smash, man.
Did Sanders and Higgins have the exact same stat line?
Yes, they did. Isn't that crazy?
I had did you just mess that up?
When I did my research. No. I did a double take when I was doing my research as well.
That's funny, man. And Traquan Smith could actually be out as well. I agree with you. I think that he's probably the top
Smith. Don't play Traquan Smith.
No, he could be out.
Yeah, it sounds like he is going to be out. I mean, it's not sounding optimistic.
Adam Troutman's actually a sneaky play for DFS.
He is. Yeah, I like this. I mean, I don't think I have anything else to say above what we've already said.
I agree with you. I mean, he should be owned.
Yep.
So let's talk about Allen Lazard.
25.9% ownership. Allen Lazard posted a modest 5 for 56 versus the Panthers last week, and should continue to earn a decent amount of targets in Week 16 versus Tennessee. The Titans 26th versus the fantasy wide receiver, allowing 26 fantasy points per game to the position. Yes, Adams should have a get-right game, but I believe Lazard could have one as well.
There's a lot of 6s in here. 76 yards, right? 4 for 76. And then, man, I'm just not realizing that. But yeah, I mean, they were working him back, right? They were getting him back into the motions after being hurt for the majority of the season. Allen Lazard's a smash play. He's somebody that I'm going to be rolling out with confidence. Like, I'm actually in 2 fantasy championships that have him in it. He's playing them both.
You're not nervous at all about – I mean, he's going to have to snipe a TD from Devontae Adams. Do you think he will?
can you ask me this about 30 minutes before the game when I actually do get nervous about rolling them out and losing $2,500? I think it's actually 3,200 is one of the ones.
Ooh, that's a rich league
That's
there.
a pretty one.
Yeah,
man.
it's like 32 and then 18 or something like that. I can't remember.
Yeah, it's kind of a gut feeling. He just makes me nervous this week.
It's 42 and 18. I think it's 42 and 18. It's $500 a person. Okay, so yeah, I'm fine. I'm absolutely fine rolling them out. I'll play them. I'm cool up against Tennessee. Tennessee can't get pressure on the quarterback. It's going to allow Aaron Rodgers to sit back there the whole entire day and throw to whoever he wants to. MVS could actually be a play too. I'll explore MVS as a dart throw because he's going to be able to get downfield, and Tennessee Titans allow explosive pass plays. So, yeah, I think that Aaron Rodgers could throw for 5 touchdowns this week.
Ooh, that's a hot one.
Yeah. Do I think he does? Probably not, but, I think that he could. Yeah,
I wouldn't be shocked.
Right?
No, I mean, this is an Aaron Rodgers type matchup. I think it's going to be sick. All right, so now that we've been in agreement for 2 guys in a row, we're going to go back to probably disagreeing just a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I have to fill the sheet every week. I'm not going to change the graphic week to week just because some of the guys aren't as good as some others. But Jalen Reagor,
like every other freaking site out there, I'll tell you what,
15.6%. Last week, Reagor only caught 5 of his 8 targets for 49 yards, but still, it's 8 targets. He's still getting comfortable with new quarterback Jalen Hurts, but as long as the target share is flowing in Reagor's direction, I'm willing to add him as an insurance policy in case one of my flex players goes down this week in practice.
My big concern is the lame ankle. Got a little banged up last week. Ankle injuries, I mean, in any position, it makes me nervous.
Right.
And especially when you've got other mouths to feed in that offense and you can afford to maybe have him on a pitch count because he's hurt.
Dude, they have like 5 or 6 receivers getting snaps every single game. Like it's I was sitting there going through, I was like, wait, is that 5 snaps? They're all equal too. So, Jalen Reagor's part of the game plan, but Quez Watkins is coming out and he's been involved in the game plan, right? He got his first touchdown this past week, I believe. They're trying to get all these young players and these rookies on the same page, which is smart, by the Eagles. But it's something as to where I don't love it. His only week with over 10 fantasy points was up against the Cowboys, who they're playing this week. Meanwhile, he had actually his only touchdown of the season up against the Cowboys, but this risk is way, way too high for me to pick him up. I mean, it's something as to where your upside is capped. Your floor is literally 0 points. I think he had a couple weeks where he had 0.8 or something like that. So, I mean, he could completely lose your fantasy championship. I can't get on board with signing off on that, man. I know you're trying to fill your show sheet, but damn, that's brutal.
I mean, it was either him or Greg Ward, and I was like, I just want someone to pair up with Jalen Hurts because I know it's a juicy matchup, and it's probably one of these guys that are going to get in the end zone for the Eagles.
But that's that's DFS for me, but I can't roll I can't sign off on something that's that hit or miss. Just like I can't sign off on DPJ. I like DPJ more than I like these guys, and I still couldn't sign off on my own take with DPJ. So I can't get behind it. It's something where, man, it is Dallas. I know if there's any week to do it with Jalen Reagor, any week, it would be this week, right? But it's tough. I will, by the way, play some Jalen Reagor in DFS as long as he's, active and they're saying he's practicing normal, but not for my fantasy championship.
Yeah, definitely have to watch the practice reports coming out this week on Jalen Reagor. You're right.
I like this next one a lot more for you.
Yeah, speaking of injuries, we all saw the upset last night with the Bengals whooping up on the Steelers, who no one saw coming, especially with a 15-point spread or whatever it was.
I predicted that. No, I'm just kidding. I did not.
I wish you would have let me in on that one. But it's AJ Green, 49% owned. Never did I think I was going to have AJ Green on this list, but his production of late and his current availability warrants some attention. With Tyler Boyd getting injured on Monday night, which as of right now, we don't know the full extent of the injury. Probably a concussion, I believe. And this puts Green on the upswing for more targets. In week 14, he posted 6 for 62 and got in the end zone against the Cowboys. Week 15 wasn't that impressive, only 2 catches for 40 yards, but he is being relied on to stretch the field when needed. The Bengals face Houston this week. They're going to have to keep up with Deshaun Watson and the passing game of that. AJ Green should match up perfectly versus Vernon Hargreaves, who allows 13.3 fantasy points per game to the wide receiver. I can't believe I'm saying it. I'm on board with AJ Green this week.
I love it.
Yeah, I am too.
I think AJ Green's going to absolutely like smash. Now watch. We're going to sit there and see Ryan Finley from 2019. You know, that's what we're going to get. T. Higgins, sure, he can go off too, but AJ Green can still catch a touchdown. Instead, we're going to see Ryan Finley throw for 110 yards with 4 interceptions.
Yeah, but I'm stoked that we're talking about AJ Green. I mean, the poor guy, man. He has just been beat up for the last 2-3 seasons.
Man,
yeah, every season for the past 3 years.
AJ Green, he did not want to play last year. He sat out on purpose.
That's true.
Yeah.
He sat on purpose trying to, save his body. I'm sure he wasn't healthy, but it takes you a while to get back in football shape. So it's something as to where I saw him coming out to a slow start. I still picked him up in a couple leagues where, his deeper leagues. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to wait to play him. Like, I'm not going to play him anytime soon, but guess what? I'm rolling him out this week up against Houston.
Yeah.
I mean,
up against Hargreaves, man. He's one of the worst corners in the game.
And Vernon Hargreaves is I think he's 5'8" or 5'10". He's tiny. He's tiny. AJ Green and T. Higgins can both actually see some red zone opportunities over there.
I like that as well. There's a DFS play, AJ Green. He's probably cheap.
Oh, I nailed that a couple weeks ago, man. That was straight
cheap.
Fire, man. I nailed AJ Green. The thing that sucked though was I didn't hit him. I had him in 4 lineups, but only one of those lineups actually hit. So I was kind of bummed. But let's go ahead and bring up your next guy, unless you have anything else to add, Nate.
No, man.
All right, we're moving on to tight ends. Keep this ball rolling. And wow, another one, another Brown, Austin Hooper, 49.3% owned. For teams in need of a tight end this week, Hooper may just be available for you with the 49.3%.
Maybe it sounds like a dating app.
Yeah, right. He's available for you. Hooper dealt with injury for most of the season, and now he looks like he may be for you. No, he might be worth the money that Cleveland paid him. Coming off a 5 for 41 and a touchdown performance against a tough Giants defense, he gets the Jets this week, who are dead last against fantasy tight ends, allowing 12.2 fantasy points per game. I know Njoku's there. I know Harrison Bryant's there, but I think Hooper was the guy that Baker was waiting for this past couple weeks, and Hooper's back. I have to trust him up against the Jets.
So I'm sure that I knew it in the back, recesses of my mind, but I didn't actually acknowledge that the Jets were last against tight end. And it makes perfect sense. We talked about it earlier. They play, literally nickel coverage the entire time with 4 cornerbacks and 1 safety, and they have the safety in the box the entire time. So you're sitting there and you're looking at some of these smaller, less physical guys that have to handle these people that are probably 50 pounds more than them in most cases. This makes perfect sense. And at first, I wasn't really on it as much just because of the fact that, Hooper's been, sketch at best. Yeah. I'm looking at his stats right now, and I still don't even love it. 15.1 points, 9.3. Sure, that's great, but he only had really 2 startable weeks this entire season. Well, we'll say 4. But yeah,
the tight end position is a real fickle beast especially when it comes to waivers. There's not a lot of availability, because whoever has popped, they're already picked up. And for the fact that Hooper is still available in over 50% of leagues, that is the guy I'm trusting. If I need to stream a tight end, if I just lost Eric Ebron, I would definitely go out and get Austin Hooper and wouldn't look back.
Well, I will say one thing about Hooper, and Stefanski's actually getting his tight ends worked in more than what he was in the beginning of the season. And they still had weeks, don't get me wrong, but they're working on the play action pick a lot more often. I like the Hooper call. I don't love it, but I like it.
Yeah, I have a hard time thinking he's going to replicate last week, but as you mentioned, New York's dead last against tight end. I don't hate it. I don't love it, but if you need a tight end, there aren't a whole lot of guys left out there to get, like you said.
Well, you got to drop people too, man. You got to drop people in order to pick them up. Higbee could actually be an option. I think Gerald Everett's dealing with an injury too.
I like.
Anyways,
Higbee was an option. Yes, I think he's a little bit more owned.
Yeah, I think that. I still got to look it up. I'm still trying to catch up.
Available.
But I think Gerald Everett got hurt, didn't he? He might be out.
I believe so. Yes, and Higbee is 47.4% owned.
Yeah, that's interesting.
That's
All
an
right, so
interesting one as well.
let's go to your next guy.
But hey, if everybody is taken and you're left with scraps, and Jordan Akins might be one of those scraps left over, only owned in 3.8% of leagues.
Stealing my soul.
He's the last guy on my list. Is somewhat of a dart throw because, well, he's a tight end, and most tight ends need a touchdown to be fantasy relevant, especially this late in the season. But Akins posted 5 for 50 on 6 targets last week against Indy while receiving 59% of the snap share. If he could stay on the field and get a similar amount of targets against a poor Bengals defense that is 6th worst in the league against fantasy tight ends, allowing 9.4 fantasy points per game, he should be able to produce for your fantasy finals and get you through to your title.
Was there an injury to Darren Fells that's not being reported right now? Ooh, I can't wait to ask Adam for the 8 o'clock
I know
show.
He's old. Is that an injury?
He's like 30. I didn't realize he was 34 or something. Like up until a few weeks ago.
He's almost as old as Nate and I.
He's older than I am. That's for sure. He had 18 snaps last week. That's his lowest snap count of the entire season. I mean, Akins was in for 40 snaps, but
Sounds like he's hurt.
It does. Like 18 snaps. Pharaoh Brown had 17. Kyle Warren had 12. That's just weird.
I think it's Warren actually getting worked into the offense a little bit more, and they're using Pharaoh Brown as well.
Oh, yeah. I get it. So they're trying to figure out what they have with their youth. Like they're actually getting Darren Fells, who is a free agent coming 2021, out of the lineup. So he's not getting play. Like he's not going to be a part of the Texans next year. They're going to try and go with the youth movement. So they said, hey, we want Jordan Akins in there. We want, Kale Warren, and you can leave Pharaoh Brown in there to block. That makes sense.
I don't hate the Akins play. I mean, it's a dart throw if you need a tight end, but at this point, tight end's been so difficult, like you were saying, Chef. Like they're just, if a guy's taken off already, he's already on somebody's roster.
Can I not talk about tight ends? Because I called Irv Smith Jr. last week. In fact, almost everybody did.
And you took me with you, and I talked about him. We talked about him on Sunday, right, Nate? We talked about Irv Smith telling everybody to start him, and Conklin just crushed our dreams all over the place.
Don't have to rub it in that much, okay? No, but sitting there and looking at it, it's like Akins, outside of 2 weeks since the bye, he hasn't put up over 5 points outside of 2 weeks. So Akins makes me nervous.
A little bit. He was injured a little bit.
Yeah,
but
he was.
The production last week gives me enough that
if it's a flyer, let's go with it. If it's a flyer, let's just take it. Damn it. Fine, you talked me into it, but now that I agree with you, he's going to end up sucking again. He's going to miss a touchdown in the end zone, just like he did the 2 other times I picked him.
He stays burning you.
And then Mike's going to talk shit to me.
Let's throw in an honorable mention if we're talking dart throws, and he almost made the list over Jordan Akins. Dan Arnold, 1.5% ownership in leagues. He's going up against the 49ers. And I know he didn't do too much last week, but he is the tight end 6 the past 3 weeks, at least 8 fantasy points in his last 3 games. Arnold has 3 touchdowns in his last 3 games and is definitely on Kyler Murray's radar in the red zone. Receiving 5 targets this past week wasn't a fluke. So if you need a dart throw, I think Dan Arnold can actually be something that you're looking at in a pinch.
Dan Arnold did the same exact thing to me that Jordan Akins did. Literally. Like I had him in multiple different weeks where I thought he was going to go off, and then boom, you have Max Williams catching a 30-yard pass. I'm like, God damn it. So if I sit there and look at it, I like Dan Arnold. I don't hate him, but it's been very, very strange how that's worked out, because we sat there and we looked at Kyler Murray taking on a ton of pressure earlier in the season. They put in Darrell Daniels, right, to actually take some of that pressure off because he's a great blocking tight end. Meanwhile, Dan Arnold not only fell behind Darrell Daniels, he fell behind Max Williams because Dan Arnold can't block.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, we're now looking at it again, and Dan Arnold's getting these opportunities. And it's like, wait, why? What's happening? I'm missing something as to where they feel good about playing Dan Arnold. But
it may not happen this week, Chase. I'm sorry to cut you off, and it's just coming to me now. Kyler Murray, in the games that Dan Arnold performed well and he got all those touchdowns, Kyler Murray was not throwing the ball deep. He had shoulder issues. He was keeping it close to the chest. We saw him target
Makes sense.
DeAndre Hopkins in that small little area of a nest of a route tree that route bush that he was living in. It kept everything close to the chest, and I think maybe that's why we saw Dan Arnold's numbers last week go down. But in any case, I mean, you're probably not going out and getting him, but he is somebody to look at for next year if he stays with this offense.
He has 4 total receptions of over 20 yards so far over the past 3 weeks. He's been getting them. I remember him actually getting one that lasted it was something like 25 or 26 yards. So I wanted to look it up. Yeah, he has 4 receptions over 20 yards over the past 3 weeks. He was getting looks. But yeah, I mean, 354, 5 targets. I don't love it. The biggest thing that I don't like about this is the fact that he has 26 snaps. Darrell Daniels, who's been hurt for 4 weeks in a row, came back this past week. He got 23 snaps. And Max Williams got 23 snaps as well. So they're literally playing a third of the game apiece, essentially.
It's a crowded room.
Yep.
It is, but Dan Arnold's not blocking at all. He's literally going out on routes on 97% of his passing snaps.
That's important.
It is, but he's not getting targeted. He's getting targeted about 1/6 of his routes. So everyone that he goes out, 1/6 of his opportunities, he sees it, which isn't. Wait, is 1/6? I guess that's actually not bad.
I was told there would be no math.
It's not great, but it's not bad. It's like, what, 15% or so?
That's
I don't know.
horrible.
You do the math, I'll drink.
It's 16%. It's like 16.6%. So that's not terrible. It's not crazy bad, but either way, like that's something that's where it was probably inflated with Darrell Daniels being out, like you talked about, the injury to the shoulder. Now, this is a surprise for you guys. I didn't actually put this on the show sheet, but I did want to bring up something for Dynasty real quick, not long. I just want one person you guys are trying to buy into for the 2021 season, somebody that you're going to be really heavy on. I know you guys didn't actually plan on this, but I wanted to bring up mine, and mine is Colin Johnson, DJ Chark, and Laviska Shenault with Trevor Lawrence going in there. If I can't get one of those guys, I'm going after another. I don't care if I have to overpay. DJ Chark might get a first and a second round pick for me if my first round pick is late. I think that DJ Chark could be a top 5 wide receiver next year and moving forward. With
Trevor Lawrence, absolutely. Yeah, that whole wide receiver core next year could be absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been high on, I have Shenault in every dynasty league I'm in. So, and I love Colin Johnson. I think my guy's Ty Johnson, though.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I like Ty Johnson.
I picked him up. That's good.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit nervous that they're going to go out and they're going to try and draft a guy that is a speedster to an extent, very similar to what Denver did over there when they drafted Jerry Jeudy as, a slot guy and then KJ Hamler's a speedster. I feel like they're going to invest in a possession, bigger type receiver and then also, invest in a speedster. Now, if Tyron Johnson, they feel like that's the guy and they don't need to draft him, great. He does get a ton of targets whenever he's on the field. I mean, Herbert looks for him, looks for him. So I like it. I don't hate it. I can see it 100%.
My guy, I have 2. One is Gabriel Davis. I want him in all my leagues. And the other guy I'm going to try to buy low on a little bit because of poor production this year is Juju Smith-Schuster. I think he's at the end of his contract with Pittsburgh. We don't know where he's going yet. Owners in Dynasty will be almost happy to get rid of him because they were upset about what he did this past year. If you can get him on the cheap, you go out and buy him.
I think it's going to be very, very difficult for Washington to build this offense up because they need so many pieces on it. I mean, they need a quarterback. They need an offensive line. They need a tight end. Although Logan Thomas has been good, that's probably the one place where they
don't
can
take that away from my hit in Logan Thomas, man. I love some Logan Thomas.
I mean, they'll probably even get a goal line back unless they want to re-sign Peyton Barber, something later, like 6th round type pick or something like that. But, they have holes to fill in that offense. And, instead of sitting there, they have salary cap space, instead of sitting there and trying to compete with some of these offensive linemen, I think that they could actually tackle that in the draft and go sign Juju Smith-Schuster. He's a slot guy. Terry McLaurin plays on the outside for the most part. I like Terry McLaurin when he lines up in the slot, but he never does anymore. I think that Juju Smith-Schuster could fit in Washington. Washington drafts one of these quarterbacks.
Another spot we had talked about too, and we talked about it, I think, about a month ago. If he landed at the Bills, with Josh Allen. Look at
Yeah.
that. That'd be
Don't know,
amazing.
Well, I think Stephon Diggs moves too much to the slot. I don't think they're going to do that, but they need a possession guy. And I think, like you talked about, Gabriel Davis is fine. John Brown has a good chance of moving on here shortly, but I think that they like what they have going. I think they're going to keep improving on that and really build up their offensive line, build up their defense, make sure that secondary is secure because it did not look good throughout the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
All right. That's going to be it for us, guys. One more time, where can we find you all?
You can find me on Twitter at JanateJack2017 and my content on at IBT_media and inbetweenmedia.com and with the Join Our Circle crew, not the knitting one though.
Join Our Circle _.
Underscore.
What about you, Chef?
You can find me at FF_chef on Twitter and most of my content at thetiltisreal.com.
You guys can go check me out at Join Our Circle _ of course, and FF_intervention. Make sure you guys go check out YouTube. We got another show coming up tonight, 8 o'clock, the injury report. Normally we do it with Steffi Smalls. Tonight we're going to be doing it with Adam. So I'm very, very excited for that one. Cannot wait. Thank you guys for tuning in.
Peace.
YouTube.com/fantasy intervention. And thank you all for letting us intervene with your fantasy football life. We're out.